Welcome to the Hype Polyglot Activist. Learn languages, make a difference. My name is Dr. Carlos Yebra Lopez, and today we're going to talk about repetition. How does it work? Let's find out.
So we're going to tackle three things concerning repetition. First, why it matters. Second, what is spaced repetition? And finally, some of the applications of spaced repetition system, particularly Memrise. Now, first of all, why repetition matters? Well, knowing between 800 and 1,000 words allows us to participate in basic everyday conversations, according to Stuart Webb, professor of applied linguistics. Moreover, with 2,000 words, we can already understand around 80% of a text, according to Gabriel Weiner, founder and CEO of Fluent Forever. Now, obviously, this has to be taken with a pinch of salt, which is the fact that just knowing words alone is not enough. One needs to know lemmas or word families. For instance, let's say you know the infinitive of a verb, you still need to know basic forms of conjugation and vice versa. And also, just because you recognize a word, it doesn't mean that you understand the particular nuance that that word produces within a given sentence. So just knowing words is not the same as mastering meaning. So perhaps you understand around 80% of the text, but you still struggle with most sentences overall. Still, this is a pretty good indicator. And what this tells us is that memorizing and retrieving words is critical to language learning success. And obviously, repetition plays a key role in that memorization and that retrieving of words. Therefore, repetition is critical to language learning success. That's why it matters. Now, what exactly is spaced repetition? So the first approximation would be this. Spaced repetition is about using intervals to create an optimal learning schedule based on how quick we are to recall certain words and forget others. So we're aiming at the creation of an optimal learning schedule, and that can be done so long as we can figure out how long does it take us to recall a word and how long does it take us to forget it. So back in the day, in the late 19th century, Hermann Ebbinghaus came up with this idea of the forgetting curve, right? So Ebbinghaus memorized a series of nonsense syllables and then tested his memory of them at various intervals, at various periods, ranging from 20 minutes to 31 days. And on the basics of this, he came up with the graphic that you can see on the screen, the correlation between memory retention, what percentage of the words, or the syllables in this case, one is able to recall, and the elapsed time, which is how many days after we first came across this syllable are we able to recall that syllable. And it looks like a trivial experiment, but this research project was the first one to demonstrate that there is an exponential loss of memory unless information is reinforced. Which means if we can calculate exactly when and with what frequency information is to be reinforced, then we can prevent that loss of memory and we can recall vocabulary effectively, which we need for our language learning success. And so how does this idea apply? Well, the early applications of spaced repetitions began in the 1970s with the system of flashcards. I'm sure some of you, particularly amongst those who are 30 or older, have used at some point of seeing somebody use at some point flashcards. Those cards where you write a particular word or sentence in your target language, and then on the flip side, you write its translation in a language you already know. And so that way you can practice your vocabulary, and you practice it in a personalized way because you only write down the words that you struggle remembering. So it's very useful to you as opposed to going through a random list of words in your target language. You only go through those words that you need to practice. That's great, but you still lack systematicity. You still lack the ability to foresee and to schedule with what frequency are you going to review those words, and which words in particular with more frequency than others. After this, we had the famous Pimsleur audio tapes. So these were usually cassettes. So you just play the cassette and listen to somebody repeating basic sentences in the same language, however many times in a particular interval. Now, this solved the problem that the flashcards couldn't, which was to systematize the increase of time intervals in which that vocabulary appears. On the other hand, these were all ready-made sentences, so you could not personalize the vocabulary and the sentences that you had in this course. So if, say, you were already familiar with certain sentences and vocabulary, you couldn't escape from hearing them again and again and again as part of the course, because those sentences and vocabulary were pre-arranged already. So each system, the flashcards and the audio tapes from Pimsleur, came with their own advantages and disadvantages. Fast forward to nowadays, and we have online platforms that are based on algorithms that in turn use artificial intelligence and machine learning. So what we have is both personalized vocabulary, just like we had in the case of flashcards, and the systematic increase of time intervals offered by Pimsleur's audio tapes. So we have the best of both worlds and none of the disadvantages of either. And so the way it works is that when you first start using that online platform, the algorithm starts with the average forgetting curve of previous users as a baseline. Then, according to your performance, the algorithm adjusts. And then every single answer you provide affects the kinds of words and sentences you're going to be shown and with what frequency you're going to be shown them. So the most popular apps for online platforms based around algorithms and spaced repetition systems are Anki and Memrise. Now, I've never used Anki, but I've used Memrise for a long, long time now, some 8 years. And so it is my pleasure to let you know the advantages of using this system and how to use it to your advantage. Now, before I proceed with my explanation on how Memrise works and what my experience was with Memrise, I want to clarify that this video is not sponsored by Memrise. Nobody in Memrise knows that I'm recording this video, and I will get no benefit or profit from Memrise, either financial or otherwise. So this is purely my experience. What I do in order to increase my memorization of vocabulary with Memrise is, first, I create a Google Doc and enter the vocabulary I want to learn in my target language, right? And then once I have a decent list, maybe 5 or 10 terms, I go to memrise.com. I create my own personalized course. You can also follow courses created by other people, but that detracts from the personalized experience. So I think it's better to create your own course. You create a personalized course, which, by the way, is for free, and you import the vocabulary that you had written in the Google Docs or Word document. Then you let the algorithm work its magic, meaning you let the algorithm determine how much you struggle to recall each word, and therefore how frequently you should be shown said word or sentence. And just make sure to be consistent. Make sure you can practice 3 times per day. If you can only practice 2, I believe that is already good enough. But ideally, you want to practice 3 times, which of course have to be spaced enough throughout the day. So you can practice once in the morning while you're having your breakfast, then after lunch, for instance, or around the midday, and finally one time in the evening. So let me show you exactly how I do it. For instance, this is a language that I'm currently studying, Yiddish, And this is a Google Doc that I recently created with vocabulary that I'm particularly interested in reviewing. So this might be vocabulary that you're already familiar with if you're studying Yiddish, and in which case it wouldn't apply to you. But this is, again, an example of personalized learning. You create a Google Doc, not with all the words that there are in Yiddish, but only with the words that you're interested in learning at this particular stage of your learning journey in Yiddish or whatever target language you have. Then with these words, I go to Memrise, I create a course. In this case, I call it Yiddish, but I've created all the courses for all the language that I'm studying. For instance, Hebrew for me, because it's just a personalized course. It's not intended for anybody else. German English, this is a Ladino course, Catalan, Chinese English, etc. And then I'm following other courses, for instance, Duolingo Esperanto. This is not a course I created, but I'm following it because I find it useful. Still, most of the courses that I have in my dashboard, as you can see, are courses that I created specifically for my own language learning purposes, and that's what I recommend you do. So if you go to the Yiddish course, here you have course details, and in the course details you will see the vocabulary that I have added, and you will see when each of the words are ready to review and when was the last time you reviewed it, or the first time. Again, this is information that is specified for every single item. So this is fantastic. You don't need to take into account or memorize any of this information because, as I already said, the algorithm takes care of all of that. And so here, if you click Edit Course, you will see all of the words that I have imported from my Google Doc, and I can add audio. I can write my own definition. There are some typos, for instance, here. Instead of thanks, I wrote something different, so I can edit that, yeah, etc. I can always post-edit those words, but the point is that here you have all the words that I've written, all the words in the course, and I can add, go here and go to the end and add new words. See here? I can add, for instance, this one, to cry. Okay. You just select plus and it gets added, or select X and it gets deleted. Okay, save and continue, and there you go. You have your words there. And this is a freemium service. So one thing to bear in mind is that with the free version, you can only access so many functions. For instance, if you have the premium version, you can access a category known as difficult words. So the algorithm, out of all the words that it calculates, singles out those words that you're really struggling to recall and creates a separate category with them so that you can just practice specifically those words. Still, even if you don't have a separate category of difficult words, those words that you have more difficulty recalling will be shown to you accordingly. And so this is very helpful, but it's not strictly necessary.
That's all from me. I hope this was useful to you, that you learned about the importance of repetition as a polyglot and how to use spaced repetition system to your advantage. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching.